trust? I know in your shows you don't,
Sure.
your handshake, you seem disappointed when people break their promises.
Yeah.
Why is that so important to you?
Well, ultimately the deals are done with a contract at some point in the future. But for me, the handshake's like a preview to the movie, right? If I want to know what the movie's going to be like, I watch the trailer. If we can't do business by shaking hands, then what's a piece of paper going to solve? I think the other thing is things usually change in the first month. They change their mind, their bills get paid, they get a bit of amnesia. All of a sudden they think, well, I don't need you anymore. I was like, well, no, I didn't say that. They said that to me. And so people change. And the handshake, I think, gives both sides a little bit of flexibility. It's
That's true. Thank you.
more often than not, people are good.
I agree.
More often.
If I was to push you and say, what would your definition of literally the word strategy be? What does what does that word mean to you?
An in-the-moment decision. For me, I'm not a planner. And ultimately, I know where I want to get to in a particular business, but I think the strategy for me is something that is very in the moment, in the circumstance. In my bigger businesses, like my business Camping World, there's clearly a strategy. It's very different because there's $4 billion of revenue, 8,000 people, big leases, there's investor expectation. In the small businesses, it's trying to survive and trying to stand out in a crowd. So the strategy is very different for me. In my small business world, it is in the moment without a plan. At some point in the future, when the business matures and it becomes truly viable and scalable, then a normal process would be put in place. So in my Camping World business, my strategy is all about where do we want to get you in 1 year, 3 year, 5 year? What are the people that I need to help execute that? And what's their role going to be in that process? In every instance, though, plus or minus, I always tell them that I reserve the right to change the plan at any moment. And that has always been my strategy. Change constantly. Yep.
What is the best piece of business advice anyone's ever given you?
It was probably given to me by a small business owner that I was investing in who was really angry at me and said, you don't have all the answers. You're not always right. And some of the stuff you do is wrong. And realizing that that was actually true. That was advice. Essentially what that person was telling me was, stop acting like you know everything. And it was more impactful for me coming from somebody who was struggling than it was from somebody who was successful, oddly enough. Like, I'm not a big, who is your mentor? My mom. I don't really have a lot of business mentors. I don't read business books. I don't read any. I feel like I can go live a book, right? I can go meet different people. I tend to take advice from people who, I don't know why I do this. I tend to take advice from people who are a little less obvious and a little less proud to give me advice. And there's certain people, I've met people in the history of my life that they're older. Son, I'm going to give you some advice. That doesn't work as well with me as somebody who's really struggling saying, I have to be honest with you, I want to give you some advice. You don't have all the answers all the time. I was like, yeah, person's right, I don't. And it changed the way I thought.
Out of all the situations that have taken place on The Prophet, what was the most surprising situation that's ever happened that?
I'll give you the funny answer first. So I did an episode with a man and a woman who used to be married. They were in the trailer business. And the woman asked me out at least 10 times. And at the end of the episode, after I had determined that I did not want to do business, I was walking away, she asked me out again. And I was very inappropriate. I was so angry, and I said, which I didn't think we'd ever play, but we did. She asked me, "Are you sure you don't want to go out with me?" I was like, "F you, I don't want to go out with you." So that was the most surprising from a funny standpoint. from a not funny standpoint is people stealing. Yeah. I have this theory that if I buy your house, you don't have permission to come swim in the pool anytime you want. We're going to swim together. There's going to be rules of engagement. And it's people stealing. It surprises me that people get amnesia and they just forget. But I think there's also pleasant surprises. And those are, I think I like to focus on those a little more, where people that you think are going to be a disappointment that turn out to be maybe one of your better assets. When I started doing the show, I thought that I never really anticipated that any of these businesses would start to gel together and become holding companies. And we were talking earlier in there about I have a lot of money invested in the pet business or in the fashion business, and they've turned into really legitimate enterprises. And I was with a group of people yesterday that are all in the same silo. And I looked at them all and I said, you guys, the reason we're doing well is because we're like a bunch of Motley Crue people. We're all misfits. Nobody ever wanted to bet on any of us, but together we're pretty damn good. That stuff surprised me. And watching, I think the greatest thing for me has been, if I go out to lunch, like I went to lunch in LA yesterday, and I had a bunch of different businesses together that are all in the same sector. And we went out to lunch, and there was people in the restaurant that were like, oh, okay, you're in a different, I saw you in and they saw all these people from these different episodes together. They were like so confused by it. And I looked at the lady and I said, this is real. Like we're actually here to have lunch and do business. But I think that's been a pleasant surprise.
So what's the biggest disappointment you've experienced, whether it's on the profit, personally, in business, and what lesson did you learn?
Biggest disappointment in my life?
Life, business, however you want to.
That as I get a little bit older, and I'm 43 now, so it's young relative to AARP, that I maybe gave up too much of myself for this. And
You mean in terms of what?
yes,
All of it.
too much of myself. I've given up, made a lot of sacrifices, and I don't mean like financial ones, but I have a different life. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I chose this path of life, and it's sort of like, as my mother used to tell me, that was your purpose, and you picked your path, and you need to stick to it. So I enjoy making a television show. It's fun. It's hard work. It's harder after the show because these people are interesting. But I would say my biggest disappointment is that I maybe sacrificed more than I should have. I guess I could always change it, but I think that ship's kind of sailed.
And then,
So why would you say that? You're only 43 years old. You act like you got one foot on.
Because I have to also be willing to change.
Oh, well, that's the real issue.
Yes, but that's a disappointment. But it's not an issue for me because I'm comfortable with it. But he asked me what my biggest disappointment is. I mean, that's it. And yeah,
I wasn't planning on asking a question, but yeah, obviously one of the reasons why there's alignment with us and Mark is because he understands CRM, he understands what's possible. But this takes me back to the question I want to ask, and Mark, we were talking about this. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable about disappointment. And it is a daily decision, whether or not it's made. It's a daily decision for business owners on whether they're going to put everything into the business and sacrifice other things in their lives that matter to them, or vice versa. It's super hard, you see it. I live it with our business owners.
that's why I'm not hard on them.
Yeah.
It definitely, that is probably the biggest struggle for me, is that I'm very active on social media, and during the episodes, people will be like, I can't believe you tolerated that from these people. And I'm like, you know what? First of all, it's not hard to raise your hand and say you need help. Second of all, it's not hard to raise your hand, say you need help, and then do it in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And then to do it on camera, and then to be told you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And so I'm far more tolerant of people just because, and I'm been more patient with people because I'm like, if that was me, I don't think I could do it. So they definitely get a hall pass, and those sacrifices are very real that people are making. But it also shouldn't be a crutch.
Yeah.
And I don't want people
No
wearing it on
victory.
their sleeve,
Right,
like that's their
right,
story.
right.
You know, I think people sometimes do that, like, I'm a small business owner, give me a break.
Right.
It's like, no.
Then it just engenders the charity that you were talking about in the other room. Like,
In fact, no, I'm gonna raise the bar higher. You chose this lifestyle.
Right.
If you don't like it, go get a job, 9 to 5, you'll be good.
Right.
So that's what I think about it. I bought a business, small business that was closing, 2 fashion stores, and they had 0 database, 0. And the guy's like, why do you think I failed? Is it my margins? I was like, yes. What else do you think it was? I was like, you don't have any customers to sell me. He had no database. And the first thing I ask in this business that I'm buying tomorrow, which is why I'm here today and not tomorrow, is a business that is all built on database, except they didn't mine it. A $60 million company that makes $8 million a year, no CRM.
Wow.
Overton, it's a catalog and online company. A catalog and not, with no CRM. I know, that's what I said. I was like, I'm buying this. Because you can,
The upsides.
the upside's huge. Okay, we good?
Marcus,
Thanks,
thank you so
guys.
much for your time.